everyone. Thank you for joining. This is going to be an interactive session, so you're going to have access to a website. So please have your laptop or tablet or phone handy. And we're not going to talk too much. The point is to hear from all of you. So I'm Emily Norford, and this is my colleague Claire Bouillon, and we are from EAT, based in Norway. And we are here today to run a very condensed EAT-Lancet 2.0 consultation. You might be familiar with the original EAT-Lancet Commission report that was launched in 2019. This report set forth boundaries and definitions for healthy diets from sustainable food production systems.
Nous avons établi les limites.
This past summer, in June, we launched an EAT-Lancet 2.0 commission, so a group of expert scientists from around the world who are providing an update to the original EAT-Lancet report and expanding its scope.
Une mise à jour du dernier rapport Lancet et comme partie de ce processus pour aider ce processus
perceive food systems and gaps in the science and opportunities and priorities, we are holding a consultation series. And we're really pleased to have all of you join this one. And the slides there. So let's get started. The consultation will take place on an interactive online platform.
La consultation va se tenir dans une plateforme interactive.
So you can start accessing this link here, and will help you. But the reason we're using this online platform is because it's the same format and the same platform for many consultations that we're holding all around the world. And this is a way for you to type in your responses and us to capture input from a range of stakeholders and be able to synthesize the data. So when you join, don't worry, we will not share your information with anyone else. And when we synthesize the results from the consultation, it will be anonymous. No one will know exactly what you said. So it's a safe platform. But if you are having a lot of difficulty joining or really don't want to join, let us know. And we also have some paper worksheets that you could fill out instead. So when you go to this link, and I'm sorry it's a bit long, but hopefully you can type it in. You will be prompted to create a HouseBase account. And once you have done that, you'll see a menu, a drop-down menu, to join the MUFPP consultation. So I'll give people a couple minutes just to try to log into the HouseBase account, and let us know if you have questions. We can walk around and help. And we can keep it quite an informal discussion here, so don't be afraid to speak up. So Claire can walk around and help you. Just raise your hand if you have trouble joining.
Un, deux, trois.
Has anyone successfully managed to get into HouseBase yet? Or you're good? Some of you? I'll give people a few minutes to keep working on it. And some of you who are now registering for HouseBase, there are a few demographic questions. That's just so that when we analyze the results from all of these consultations we're holding, we'll be able to filter the answers according to different sectors or age groups or regions, etc.
Just raise your hand if you have any questions.
And another thing to point out is that this has been designed to take 1.5 hours. We have 45 minutes in this session, so it might feel a bit condensed, but it'll still be good for us to collect this information. So we're really happy you're here. Any more people who've managed to get into HouseSpace? Is it working for some of you? Some of you are good? So you can keep working on registering for HouseSpace with this link if you haven't already. And once you have completed your registration and you see the EAT-Lancet 2.0 welcome page, there is a drop-down menu for consultations, and you can select the MUFPP icebreaker quiz.
Et vous pouvez...
So let us know if you need help finding it, and we are happy to help.
Ah, então tá. Então a gente vai ficar tranquilo aqui. Fique permanente com você.
Oh, welcome.
Soyez...
Sorry.
Mike, tô me ouvindo?
Hi.
Tá, então deixa ele, eu vou mandar.
Yeah.
Depois vamos.
No worries. I just wanted to know.
É o meu, esse é o meu.
Ah, yeah.
I just arrived. Sorry, I'm totally lost. So I wanted to know a little bit about the consultation.
Yes, thank you. So if you've just trickled in after I gave the introduction, this is a consultation to collect all of your feedback on your views of healthy, sustainable, equitable food systems that we will share with the EAT-Lancet 2.0 Commission. So it's a global commission of expert scientists that are providing an update to the original EAT-Lancet report that in 2019 was published and defined healthy diets from sustainable food production systems. So the input we get today will help the new commission consider what to cover in the new report.
So once you've put your email and you're in, you select today's session, and then if you're on your phone, on the top right, there are 3 little lines. Click on that, and then you can go into the icebreaker.
Okay, so we're going to keep moving on for those of you who've managed to join. Again, if you feel the house-based thing is not working for you and you would prefer to fill out your answers on paper, let us know. Claire has some paper sheets to fill in. And if you're still having trouble joining, let us know as well, and Claire can help. But I will move on so we can get started for those of you who are ready. So this will just stay on the background during today's discussion to remind everyone what is a planetary health plate. And this image was produced when the original EAT-Lancet report was launched. And this is what the original EAT-Lancet Commission defined as a healthy diet from a sustainable food production system. So it's kind of the guideline that we have to go by. And you can see it's around half fresh fruits and vegetables, and then smaller amounts of other types of food groups. So just to keep in mind, if we're talking about the Planetary Health Plate or EAT-Lancet, this is sort of a visual of what the original EAT-Lancet report was. So we're going to do a quick icebreaker quiz. For those of you who are in HouseSpace, there's a little drop-down menu for consultations, and you can select the MUFPP consultation icebreaker quiz with today's date. So please go to that page if you are in HouseSpace. And yeah, just flag Claire down if you want help. First question, just a little pop quiz. Do you know, in general, how many calories should the average person consume each day? If you're in HouseSpace, just click on the answer there. If not, what do you think? The options are 1,000, 1,500, 2,000, 2,500, or 3,000 calories. Anyone want to guess or know the answer? Shout out a guess, anyone? Yep. I don't know who said that back there. Correct. 2,500 is, in general, the average amount of calories we should all be eating. Next question. Which 4 food groups must be consumed as part of a healthy diet? So there are 4 different types of food groups, and it's a bit, you could cheat a bit by looking at this plate up on the screen, but the plate shows more food groups than what you need to consume. So the options are whole grains, starchy tubers, fruits, vegetables, dairy, meat, sugar, and unsaturated oils. Anyone know which 4 of these we all should be eating to have a healthy diet? Vegetables, good, that's one of them. Fruits, good. Whole grains, yep. Yep, great, unsaturated oils. So those are the 4. And anything else in this plate, you can see other food groups can be part of a healthy diet, but they don't have to be. Next question, what is the recommended weekly range of meat consumption? And by this, we also mean red meat, pork, poultry, eggs, and fish. So not dairy, but other animal source proteins. What is the recommended weekly range? 0 to 20 grams, 0 to 200 grams, 0 to 1,500 grams, 20 to 200 grams, or 200 to 2,000 grams. Does anyone know how much meat we should be consuming?
Quelles sont les possibilités? Eu estou me ouvindo. Quelles sont les
I heard the right answer.
possibilités?
Could someone say that louder? Yeah, exactly. 0 to 200 grams. Well done. And then if you're on house base, we have a question just for you. How hard do you think it is to follow a planetary health diet? So we don't have to discuss that. I think we need to keep moving along, but just to consider, eating the way this plate shows, do you think it's easy or almost impossible or somewhere in the middle? We're curious to hear your views. And now if you're in house base, click at the bottom that says click here to move to the main discussion. Yeah. Yep, so again, if you've just joined, Claire can help you. The link to access the house-based platform is on the screen. If you're in the house-based platform,
Le lien pour avoir
click at the
accès
bottom of
au
the
house.
icebreaker quiz to move to the main discussion. Or in the consultations drop-down menu, select the MUFPP main discussion. So we have a few questions, and I see that someone has filled in an answer on house base, so that's great. First of all, how would you define a healthy diet or food? And here we can think about the plate that was up on the screen, and also you can think about the local context, kind of variants of healthy diets depending on the age group or the culture. So please type in your answer on Housebase if you're in the platform, or write it down on the paper if you have that. And while you guys are thinking and writing, also feel free to raise your hand and share if you would like to. Good, I'm seeing some comments coming in, that's great. A lot of you have mentioned varied and balanced food and diversity, less processed food. Some of your answers are already thinking more broadly than just a healthy diet for kind of human consumption, but what is it considering other factors too? And just raise your hand if you would like to share what you have entered or what you're thinking. I also see some of you are moving on to the next questions, which is great since we don't have much time for this consultation. So once you've been thinking about what does a healthy diet mean to you, you can also think, how would you define an equitable food system? What does equity mean in terms of the global food system or a local food system? And is equity the right term for this sort of justice angle? Would fair or just or a different word resonate better? Does anyone want to share what an equitable food system means to you? Someone's given an answer that gets into access to healthy and sustainable and culturally adequate food. Another person thought it's about where farmers have the land to produce. So there are different aspects to this. So thanks for filling in what you think. And then the third question to think about here in this section of the consultation is, how would you define a sustainable food system? So I see some of you are filling that in already, which is great. Again, just raise your hand if you want to share with the whole group or elaborate on your answer. What does a sustainable food system mean to you? Couple more minutes to fill in your thoughts on these three first questions. All right, in a minute, we'll move on to the next page in this questionnaire.
Does anyone want to share thoughts, feedback?
I like how a lot of these answers are cross-cutting across the healthy, equitable, and sustainable. Because now we're going to move on.
Durable. Maintenant,
I see a few people are still writing, so wrap up your answers. Okay, sorry for those of you who are going to get cut off. We'll move along. So we've all just thought about, what does a healthy diet mean to you? An equitable food system, a sustainable food system. Are these the three most important characteristics for assessing global food systems? Do we think healthy, equitable, and sustainable captures the most important things when we're researching food systems or thinking about transforming food systems? Or are there any other major things that we're missing? So you can type in your thoughts to that question. It would also be really interesting to hear from some people, any volunteers to share your thoughts. Are these three dimensions sufficient, or should the EAT-Lancet Commission consider an additional dimension? Yes, please.
When we talk about equitable, does that imply the culturally adapted? Because I think especially for indigenous people, it needs to be culturally adapted to their reality and not only just respecting some human rights, but also what they need as cultural. Yeah.
That's a really important factor, and please write that down for us so we make sure we capture that. And I think that's interesting, whether the culturally adaptable is part of, or which dimension it's part of. And something we hope comes across, and that will be emphasized more in the new iteration of the EAT-Lancet report, is that this plate is quite adaptable to different ways of eating and different cultural practices in different regions and different seasons. But that's a very important thing to keep in mind. I see some comments where most of you agree that these three characteristics are sufficient, but there's some suggestions for additions. Does anyone else think something else should be included? Healthy, equitable, sustainable. Does anything else need to be on this list? I see a good point about depends on how these concepts are defined, and that's true. They could be kind of envisioned quite broadly, which could include a lot of other dimensions. So good to hear from you if you think things need to be emphasized here. I see a lot about the culturally meaningful relevant or aspect and affordability for different groups. So I'll give you a couple more minutes to kind of fill in your thoughts on this question, and then we'll move on. All right, in the interest of time, we'll move on. So now you've been taken along to the next page. There are two questions here. The first is, how much do you agree with this statement? In theory, I believe it is possible for everyone, everywhere, to have a healthy, sustainable, and equitable diet. So you can select on the scale of 1 to 5 if you strongly disagree or strongly agree with that statement. And then the next question, where you can type in your thoughts. Given that we're aiming for the EAT-Lancet Commission reports to help shape the future of food policies, how can we make the new version, the EAT-Lancet 2.0, more relevant to your life or your field of work? So maybe some of you are not at all familiar with the EAT-Lancet report. How can we get it out so you or your community is aware of it? Maybe some of you are familiar with the first EAT-Lancet report, but think there's different ways we can get the second version out in the world and useful by different groups. Or maybe you noticed some gaps in the first report that you think the second report should address. So I see someone said it should address issues of governance. That's a great input. Are there other things you think were missing from the first report if you were familiar with it? Or if not, just imagine a global scientific commission looking at healthy, equitable, and sustainable diets. What would need to be included to make it useful for you? We're getting a nice diversity of answers here. Again, feel free to raise your hand and share if you would like to speak up with the whole group. Yes. Go ahead.
Sorry, I always have something to say. I'm wondering if EAT-Lancet is interested in, does EAT-Lancet have any information about how the food should be produced? Because if we eat a tomato that comes from, let's say I'm from Canada, we eat a tomato from Mexico, is it better for that tomato to be locally produced in hydroponic locally? Or so I'm wondering if it could provide that kind of information about the production mode.
That's a great input. I hope you wrote it down, or please do if you haven't yet. I think food production is definitely part of the scope, but then that level of nuance is really interesting to see how much can be captured. Is this another hand? Yeah.
Hi. Thank you very much for the opportunity and for the questionnaire. Another thing is how food is produced. I mean, not only where, but if there's pesticides being used, if they're coming from agroecological systems. And another thing is to, of course, it's a lot of difficulties to put forward only one recommendation, but to have inputs from the global south as well, because we have a lot of great experiences from food guides and other things. So I think that's the challenge. There's no one thing for the whole world, but how to make it possible to give room for specific contexts.
Thanks for that. I see another hand over here. We can go you and then you.
Yeah, thanks very much. I think I want to raise an issue that actually came up in a previous session on waste management. In case of waste management, there's a tendency to focus on the consumers and the waste caused by consumers, and not enough attention on the waste caused by producers and also in the value chain. In the case of healthy diets, there's often a sort of tendency to focus on consumers' knowledge, so information, education, nutrition education, and so on. But we know very well that a huge amount of influence comes from policy change, and I'm curious as to how EAT makes the balance, and even things like controlling where food can be sold. Actually, there's a case that I was discussing with the Lima city has a policy restricting the sale of unhealthy food near schools. So, the balance between policy change and how to achieve that and nutrition education.
Thank you. That's a really good point. One more input on this question, and then we'll move on. So.
Hi. Yeah, I think my input is more maybe on how EAT or the EAT-Lancet Commission could provide input also on processes that could take place at national level to really translate this more kind of globalized, global version of the diet into more localized ones. But yeah, kind of provide guidance on how they can go through that, what are the different things to take into considerations, etc. So maybe this goes beyond because it's not so much content-based, but yeah, thank you.
Thank you for sharing that as well. I think it's very important to know how, what does this global science mean at the country level or at the city level as well. So thanks. We're almost out of time, so we're going to move a bit quickly. I'll move you on to the next question. This one's more about communicating findings. So we just talked about kind of what type of content and the new version of the report would make it more relevant for you. Now, please list a few recommendations you have for once the report is produced. How do we share it with you? What are your top 3 recommendations for how to communicate the science and the content in a way that can help people actively engage with it? So we have just a couple minutes left, so wrap up your responses on the communicating findings, and I'll move us on in a few seconds. And if anyone has a very radically different idea, please feel free to share. I see a lot of really good input about videos and infographics and summary reports, so it's really helpful. And I think I will move us on. So now we would like to hear if you have any practical examples of experiences or projects or initiatives that would be beneficial for the EAT-Lancet 2.0 Commission to look into or to consider that show how to achieve healthy diets or sustainable food production and consumption and equitable food systems. So we've heard a reference to an example about restricting food marketing in Quito. Are there any examples from your work or really compelling cases that you know of that would be helpful for the Commission? And also raise your hand if you would like to say anything out loud. And this whole Milan Pact forum is full of good examples, so I think there's a lot we can learn from. So will you keep filling in examples? Because we are wrapping up here. Just like to point you to additional resources. So if you would like to learn more about the EAT-Lancet Commission, both the original one and now the 2.0 version, you can find information on our website. The link is here. And also, this consultation process that we just went through with the House-based interactive platform, it's intended to have a little bit more space for discussion and a few additional questions that we took out because of the short amount of time we had today. But if you would like to join a more detailed discussion, or if you would like to work together to organize a consultation with your organization or network or community, please do reach out. We're trying to get input from as many different stakeholders as possible, so we would love to hear from you. And that's it. So last step on the House-based platform, for those of you who are still there. Thank you for joining, and just let us know if you want to stay in touch. We can also, we won't use your emails that you shared with us on House-based for anything aside from this, but if you would like to be informed and kind of hear about developments as the EAT-Lancet 2.0 Commission progresses, please do let us know, and we'd love to collaborate. Thank you.